to Ohio. And that's going to happen from 1806 to 1811. And they had to stop in 1811, continuing to build this Cumberland Road. Why'd they stop? No, good guess. Well, it could have been partly part of the war. What's it cost? It costs money, right? So they ran out of funding. So they built the road from 1806 to 1811, but I will give you credit. Part of the reason they stopped construction because of the war, because the money needed to be used elsewhere, and of course men were fighting. So they stopped in 1811. Yeah. They pay me to answer your question.
Where did they stop?
They stopped in Ohio, the state of Ohio.
And then, okay, this is a little bit back. How many people did the population go up?
2 million.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 million, yep. Now, money was the issue for the stoppage. Well, for 11 years they didn't do anything, but in 1822 they started building again because they got more funding. So they built from 1806 to 1811. They have to stop because of financial issues. They build up the money in the treasury, and they begin to build again in 1822. And that building continued until 1838 when they completed the Cumberland Road. Now, it went all the way from Cumberland, Maryland, clear into Illinois. So it went all the way through the states here. If you look at this, it went through Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, all the way to Illinois. They wanted to go all the way to the Mississippi River with the thing. There's a lot of water routes in between here that can be used for transportation as well, but this road made a big difference, okay? Well, historically it is, but not travel, you know what I mean? Now, this is kind of interesting because once they finished this in 1838, whose responsibility was it to maintain?
DOT.
Well, close. You're close.
I don't think we had it.
But if they did, hey, specifically, what DOT? So here comes the road from here all the way to here. Who's responsible for the road that goes through Ohio? Ohio was turned over to the state. Indiana, Illinois. So once it was completed, it would be the responsibility of the state in which it went through to maintain it. Once it completed, they decided to change the name of it from the Cumberland Road to the National Road. The National Road. It was kind of, don't take this the wrong way, it was kind of our first interstate in a way. Did anybody know what year the interstate commerce system came through and we started building interstates in the state?
1950s.
The 50s, 1950s, very good. So this is we didn't have interstates till the 1950s. So this was kind of our first interstate, although it wasn't an interstate, and it became known as the National Road. All right, last thing we're going to talk about is a profile on James Monroe. Now here's what your test is going to consist of. Knowing the difference between Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun, Daniel Webster. Those three and this profile. Okay? So, pay attention because we're going to have the test tomorrow. And I'm going to give you the review today, which is you need to know everything about Henry Clay, everything about Daniel Webster, everything about John C. Calhoun I gave you, plus this profile. Okay? So here we go. Profile of President James Monroe. James Monroe was born on April 28th of 1758. He was born on April 28th of 1758. And he was born in Virginia.
April what?
I'll repeat it many times. The more you say what, the less I'm going to repeat. James Monroe was born on April 28th, 1758 in Virginia. April 28th, 1758 in Virginia. Now, he was a little privileged. He attended elementary school and public schools, but once he went to high school, what did he go to? Private school. It was called Campbelltown Academy. It's called Campbelltown Academy. That was the private school that James Monroe went to, and it's on your ID sheet. Campbelltown Academy. So he went to public elementary schools and then enrolled in private high school called Campbelltown Academy.
All the schools were in Virginia.
Anybody want to guess who one of his classmates was at Campbellton that we've talked about, kind of a big name?
John Quincy Adams.
No, good guess. A John. You're John. Of course, there's a lot of Johns. I'll give you a hint. John. Say it. What?
Wait,
What were you going to say first?
I was gonna say something.
This guy was kind of important. He was, huh?
John C. Calhoun.
No, he was a judge.
Okay.
John Marshall, very good. First Supreme Court Justice, John Marshall was, or second Supreme Court Justice, excuse me, John Marshall was one of his classmates at Campbelltown Academy. So he was a classmate of John Marshall, who went on to become Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
So this is true.
Well, it was very private and very exclusive, yeah. Now, during the American Revolution, Monroe served in the Continental Army. He served under Washington. And when the war ended, he had earned the rank of major. Okay, so he served in the Continental Army under George Washington. And when the conflict ended, he finished with the rank of major. So, backing up a little bit, Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, Virginia. He attended elementary schools and public schools, but then enrolled in a private high school in Virginia called Campbelltown Academy. One of his classmates at Campbelltown was John Marshall, who later became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And during the American Revolution, James Monroe served in the Continental Army under George Washington, ending the conflict with the rank of major. Well, he eventually married a gal by the name of Elizabeth Courtwright, who's on your ID sheet. They married in New York City, and the couple had 2 daughters. So James Monroe will eventually marry Elizabeth Courtwright, who's on your ID sheet, and they marry in New York City, and they eventually end up having 2 daughters. And it was after he married Miss Courtwright that he entered politics. So, Monroe married Elizabeth Courtwright in New York City. The couple had 2 daughters, and it was right after his marriage to Miss Courtwright that he decided to enter politics. Now, he was interesting. And this is very important you know this. This will be on your test without question tomorrow. He served in 8 different political capacities in his life. He served 8 major political positions, and you're going to need to know these positions. Okay? Now, first of all, I'm going to go in chronological order just so you get an idea, and I'll repeat it several times. First, his first political position was he was a United States Senator. And I don't care about the dates. I would like you to write them down. I'm not going to ask you the dates in the test, but it kind of gives us a chronological order and makes a couple points. So he was a United States Senator from 1790 to 1794. From 1790 to 1794, he served as a United States Senator. Well, after serving his time as a United States Senator, he then became United States Minister to France. He became United States Minister to France. United States Minister to France. And he served as United States Minister to France from 1794 to 1796. So he was United States Senator from 1790 to 1794, then United States Minister to France from 1794 to 1796. The third position he had, he became Governor of Virginia. But he took some time off. He took off 3 years, and he served as Governor of Virginia from 1799 to 1803. 1799, 1803, Governor of Virginia. So, U.S. Senator, 1790 to 1794. U.S. Minister to France, 1794 to 1796. Takes 3 years off, so to speak, and it becomes Governor of Virginia from 1799. Just with nothing, really. 1799 to 1803. I'm sure he relaxed a little bit. Well then, he serves as United States Minister to Great Britain after that. United States Minister to Great Britain. And he does that from 1803 to 1807. So he serves as United States Minister to Great Britain from 1803 to 1807. So he's U.S. Senator 1790 to 1794, United States Minister to France, 1794 to 1796. Governor of Virginia, 1799 to 1803. United States Minister to Great Britain, 1803 to 1807. Then he goes back and serves another term as Governor of Virginia. So he goes back to be the Governor of Virginia. And he does that from 1807 to March of 1811. So he serves as Governor of Virginia again from 1807 to March of 1811. What's that? Well, I'd make a point, yeah. What does he do after he's Governor of Virginia the second time? From 1807 to March of 1811, he's named Secretary of State. Now the reason that Colt asked me that is because when is a president inaugurated into office? March at this time. So he actually left his post with time left in governorship, right? To become Secretary of State under President Madison, and he serves as Secretary of State from March of 1811 until 1817. So he leaves his second stint as governor in March of 1811 to become President Madison's Secretary of State, and he serves under that position from March 1811 to 1817. Then, this is really interesting. After serving as Secretary of State for that period of time, he then becomes Secretary of War. Now listen to the dates. 1814 to 1815. Which tells you what if you look at the Secretary of State position. He had two jobs. He served as both Secretary of War and Secretary of State at the same time, because he was Secretary of State from March 1811 to 1817, and then also became Secretary of War from 1814 to 1815. He pulled double duty because somebody left. So he served as Secretary of War along with Secretary of State. So, when is he elected president? In November of 1816, right? But when is he inaugurated? March of 1817. So he serves as President of the United States from March of 1817 to 1824. I mean, what? That's quite a political career, wouldn't you say? It's probably the most decorated politician we've ever had. Now, the reason he served from 1817 to 1824, remember I told you he was re-elected in 1820 and ran what? Unopposed. Okay? Well, we'll make this a little bit shorter, which is fine. We'll talk about it later. After his presidency, he retires in 1825. He retires in 1825. We're going to skip John Quincy Adams and William Crawford. We'll pick them up later. So after the presidency, Monroe retires in March of 1825. And I don't know what his deal was, but he was $75,000 in debt when he left the presidency. That's kind of unusual. Most presidents got money. And they even make more money on the speaking tour after they're done. But he was $75,000 in debt. That'd be like $1.8 million today. So he was like $75,000 in debt. Presidents didn't, and it wasn't like the old days. They actually had kind of second jobs in a way, or owned farms or plantations, and things didn't work out very well for him. So he was $75,000 in debt when he left office, which is about $1.8 million today. Well, when his wife died in 1826, he sold his Virginia estate and paid off his debt and moved in with one of his daughters and her husband. That's where he spent the rest of his life. So his wife dies in 1826. At that point, he sells off his Virginia estate, his house, his mansion, so to speak, and pays off his debts and goes to New York and lives with one of his daughters and her husband. Okay, so when Monroe's wife died in 1826, he sold his Virginia estate and moved to New York to live with one of his daughters and her husband. On July 4th of 1831, he died of heart failure. On July 4th of 1831, he dies of heart failure. Kind of ironic.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Now listen to this, I bet you didn't know this. He became the third of our first 5 presidents to die on Independence Day. 3 of our first 5 presidents died on July 4th. Not the same year, but July 4th. 3 of the first 5. Anybody know who they were? Who? James Monroe died on July 4th. 3 of our first 5 presidents died on July 4th.
I think Adams did.
Not Washington.
I think it was John Adams.
No,
That's-
no. Who are our 3 that died on July, 3 of the first 5? John Adams,
oh,
and a very popular name, Thomas Jefferson. So weird as it may be, on July 4th of 1831, James Monroe died of heart failure. As a result, he became the third of our first 5 presidents to die on Independence Day, the other 2 being John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Now, let's make sure we know, here's what you need to know exactly for tomorrow. You need to know those 8 positions that Monroe served in politics. I don't care about the years, but he served 8 positions, okay? 7 different ones, right? But 8 positions, because he did governor twice. You need to know those, not the dates, but those positions, and you need to study up Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun, and Daniel Webster, because what I'm gonna have on the test tomorrow is which, you'll put their names in. Who, 1, 2, or 3 entered Congress in 1811, you'll put their names in. So you gotta know Clay, Calhoun, Webster, those 3 names, and these positions that Monroe served in politics. That's it. What's that? Which one is it? You want the state order? I'll tell you what I'm gonna do for you, because I'm really fond of you. You can have it. Oh, no! I want you to have it. I want you to have it as a gift from me. Because we're pals, we're amigos. I don't normally do this, but you probably figure some of this out and kind of get you off a good start there. There you go. Now, all you can take it. All you need to know is those 3 guys. There you go. Here they are. Henry Clay was in 3, and then those positions that you go through.
I thought you said that Henry Clay, I got the word about replay. I was like,
Those 8 and then those 3 guys. All right, one more reminder. Your parents come and see me tonight. 5 points extra credit on your attendance for next week. Now listen, I'm pretty pleased with the way things are going. Some of you are doing very, very well. Some of you are doing pretty good. Some of you need a little improvement, but you're not beyond the lost cause yet. So let's get going. What? Tonight? Yeah, tonight or tomorrow. Either one. Tonight or tomorrow. It's okay, you don't get hurt. It's you.
what time, Mr. Dirk?
What time?